Welcome back to Life After Trauma. Today's episode is about understanding human trafficking as it actually happens, not the version we've been taught through headlines or movies. It's about how exploitation really begins, why it so often goes unseen, and what healing, empowerment, and identity can look like after profound trauma. This conversation will give you a deeper understanding of prevention, warning signs, and the role of shame, as well as compassionate insight into how the nervous system survives unthinkable experiences. This episode is for survivors, parents, educators, caregivers, and anyone who wants to better understand trauma, resilience, and what it means to move from survival into agency and hope. My guest today is Jennisue Jessen, a survivor of human trafficking and the founder and CEO of Compass 31, a global organization focused on prevention, survivor restoration, and leadership development. Jennisue brings decades of lived experience and advocacy into this conversation, alongside a deeply human perspective on healing and justice. Before we continue, I want to share a gentle content warning. This episode includes discussions of child sexual abuse, human trafficking and exploitation, suicidal ideation, and self-harm. Some of these topics may be activating. Please take care while listening, pause if you need to, and know that you are always welcome to come back to this conversation when it feels right for you. I also want to note that this episode was recorded in April of 2025 and is being released now. At the time of recording, we trusted that this conversation would be shared when the timing was right. I believe that time is now. Please listen gently and remember that you don't have to hold everything all at once. Let's begin. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Jenny. You were so young when this happened, only 4 years old. Can you take us back to your early story? What do you remember of your life before this happened, before you were trafficked?
That is a great question. And I remember very little of normal life before my exploitation started because the first incident happened when I was just 4 years old. And my grandfather had taken me to work with him one day at a train station. And all day long, I was spoiled rotten. Like I was the only little girl bouncing around the train station, little blonde pigtails and coveralls, and they were giving me candy and treats. And I spent most of the day with one man in particular whose job it was to move the train cars back and forth. And I got to help drive the trains and blow the whistle and sit on his lap. And it was delightful, magical for a 4-year-old. But at the end of the day, my grandfather put me in the car to take me home. And instead of going home, we went to an open field where that man was waiting for me. And money exchanged hands, and then he came to take from me what he had paid for. And in a matter of moments, my world turned upside down and inside out. No way to reconcile the violence that I was enduring or make sense of it.
Yeah.
And that really began my journey. At 4 years old, I remember maybe one birthday before that. I remember when my mom remarried when I was 2 years old and I got the first bite of the wedding cake. But the core of my memory starts around 4 and 5 years old. And so by the time I was 5, I was praying every night. Instead of now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I didn't pray that. At 5 years old, I prayed every night that God would just let me die. So suicidal ideation, the baby version of suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
And and so that's the beginning, the once upon a time to my story.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just so sorry to hear that this happened to you, and I cannot even imagine. I think it's incredible what you have been able to do and accomplish with your life since then, because so many people who have been in that place have not been able to continue with their life, right?
Right.
So, what helped you survive mentally and emotionally during those really dark times?
For me, and I want to handle this carefully because I know everybody's on their own journey, but for me, faith was a really intrinsic part. And even that very first encounter at 4 years old, my grandfather wrapped me in a blanket and put me in the backseat of the car to take me home. And as vividly as I remember everything else about the day, the candy and blowing the train whistles and the violence, is Jesus came to me and sat in the back seat of the car with
Mm.
me on his lap, and he didn't mind the tears or the snot or the blood. He just held me and whispered, "I've got you, baby, and I'm not going to let you go." And the violence followed for 14 years. So, first grade, I had first symptoms of a sexually transmitted infection. Second grade, I sat in a church on a wooden pew behind the man who paid to rape me the night before. It went on and on and on. But the thing I think that brought me through was the fact that Jesus kept showing up in the dark, not in a church, not at vacation Bible school, not in some traditional religious sense, but in a human way.
Yeah, that you felt really supported by
Yeah.
this, like, spiritual, so even if somebody does not believe in God, it's the fact that it was, like, this presence that you felt that was there supporting you.
Tangible presence of love. And I
Mm.
think anybody, I know you're a trauma informed coach, anybody that deals or works in the field of trauma knows our brain has this tremendous capacity to compartmentalize. And what an incredible survival technique. And not only that, that we not only have fight and flight reflexes, which everybody's really familiar with, but the freeze reflex is when the brain releases all these chemicals and functionally sedates or anesthetizes the individual. And what a miraculous functionality of the brain and the body that when an individual is undergoing unthinkable trauma or pain, the brain sedates you. And
Mhm.
then it compartmentalizes it, puts it in a box until such a time that we can heal from or deal with that. And I think that's just a beautiful function and design of the human body and spirit.
It really truly is. Like, there are so many things that happen in life that we cannot handle in the moment, and if
Right,
we really fully felt what was happening, it I think we would break.
right, right.
So, for those who may not fully understand the realities of trafficking, what would you want them to know about how it actually happens and who it affects?
Oh, this is a fabulous question because I'll have to rein myself in so I don't get in a soapbox. This is such an important, critical question, Jessica. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. Because much of the ideology around trafficking is we have this concept, this Hollywood concept of strangers and, Liam Neeson or Jim Caviezel kicking down doors and dragging children to freedom and beating up the bad guys. And it's a great drama. It's a fine, entertaining movie with buttered popcorn, but the reality is so, so different
Mhm.
for the vast majority of individuals experiencing exploitation. It's somewhere between 75 and 80% of individuals are originally sold or exploited by a family member or a romantic partner.
Mm.
And of the remaining 20%, the vast majority of them are sold or exploited by somebody that they trust.
Mm.
And so the stranger danger piece, it does happen,
Mhm.
but it is less than 3% a tr- are trafficked or exploited by a stranger.
Yeah.
And there's reasons for that. The primary reason is if a stranger can build a relationship with a
Mhm.
vulnerable individual. A
Mhm.
kid, maybe they're in foster care, their family has addiction, maybe their parents just work full time and they're lonely
Yes.
for they're being bullied at school, whatever the vulnerability is. If
Yeah.
somebody can identify and build a trusting relationship with that individual, then they can easily get the kid, come meet me at the mall, come, let's go to the park, and the kid just disappears. But the kid went believing one thing, that I can trust this person. This person knows me. This person understands me. So even knows it's not really stranger danger. It's somebody who has a predator who has gotten connected and built a trusting relationship with this individual. That's the key piece. Another thing that I think is really important to talk about is one of the fastest growing trends for trafficking here in the US. And it is here in the US. That's the other Hollywood thing. It's not somewhere over there.
Yeah.
It is also here. But one of the fastest growing trends right now in the US is high school kids exploiting younger kids, and particularly middle class and upper middle class girls, young women, juniors and seniors in high school, exploiting middle school girls. And
Wow.
so they identify the kids that are kind of, not well liked or not super popular, vulnerable. They
Sure.
invite them to a party on Friday night. A lot of times, this middle schooler will sneak out because they're not allowed to go to high school parties.
Right.
Once they're at the party, they're given something that sedates them or intoxicates them. And when they're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, the individual will end up being raped, exploited, sexually explicit photos taken of them. And then following that event, well, the child doesn't ask for help because they weren't supposed to be at the party
Yeah.
and they think it's their fault and they drank the drink, all the reasons. And
Yeah.
then these high school junior, senior girls use the photos, and you're going to do what we say, or we're going to send the photos to your parents or all over the school or to your youth pastor or and so she's caught in a cycle of shame. She's living at home. She's
Yeah.
going to school every day, or he going
Yeah.
to school every day. And after school, instead of going to basketball practice or volleyball practice, she's being taken to local motels where she's being exploited for profit by these upperclassmen. And so this is happening in our communities. And the girls that are exploiting younger girls are, like I said, they're middle class, upper middle class girls. It's not the creepy guy in the basement or the monster hiding under the bed.
Yeah.
And so those are really important conversations we need to have. And unfortunately, a lot of spaces won't make allowance for conversations because it is triggering, is adult conversation. So you can't talk to a middle school youth group, or you
Yeah.
can't talk to a high school home ec class or political science class because it's touchy subject, right? But these are the individuals, the fastest growing trend that are being exploited.
That's I mean, this is all heartbreaking, but I had no idea. That's heart-wrenching.
Yeah. 42% of traffickers worldwide are women,
Wow. Doesn't that just put it in a whole different perspective? Like,
right?
yeah, completely. That's not at all what I think of when I think of human trafficking.
Right.
Wow.
It's a That's the reality though.
I want to jump ahead a minute here because I had this for later, but I think it's going to fit perfectly here because you're saying we need to have these conversations. So I would really love it if you could help us understand what some signs or red flags are that we should be aware of to help prevent trafficking or manipulation, exploitation.
Red flags. Jessica, I used to have this whole list. I used to teach 2-hour courses every weekend on what to watch for. And people would put the list in their pocket or their purse and go on about life as if didn't connect.
Yeah.
Because in reality, the youth in our lives, many of them are struggling with depression,
Yeah.
anxiety, they're being bullied at school. They may or may not be neglected at home. They're having illicit relationships online, sending their own self generated child sex abuse material.
Yeah.
And then other people are getting a hold of that and exploiting them. And so here's what I've come to believe is the most important. And that is that every one of us has the capacity to slow down to the speed of love.
Mm,
Here's what I mean. We are so busy hurrying and scurrying from one thing to the next. I got to get to the grocery store. I got to get to work. I got to pick up the kids. I got to go to soccer practice. I've got the dentist appointment. I got to make dinner. I've got to do it all again tomorrow. We're so, so busy. And when we're not hurrying, always 15 minutes behind for whatever the next thing is, when we have a moment of reprieve, we're scrolling through our phone,
mm,
right? Scrolling, scrolling. We're scurrying and we're scrolling. And the reality is, like I just shared, this fastest growing trend among high school students is that there's exploited people all around us, both
mm,
children and adults. And if we will put down our phone and slow ourselves down and make eye
mm.
contact with people, then you don't have to have a list of red flags. You
Yeah,
look in somebody's eyes, the windows to their soul, and you feel like something's not okay with
yeah,
this person. It might be like their mom was just diagnosed with cancer, or it
yeah,
might be that uh, their dad was in a car wreck, or their dad's in jail, or it might be sexual abuse. It
yeah,
might be trafficking. It might be domestic violence. It might be
yeah,
any number of things. And it's happening all around us, but we're so busy scurrying and scrolling. And if we will
yeah.
slow down to the speed of love, any adult that's in your audience that has kids and has had a birthday party at their house, I
Mhm,
encourage these moms and dads to look at around your table as your kid is blowing out their
mhm.
candles and go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Because statistically, 1/3 of the kids sitting at your table will experience sexual assault before they're 18, if they haven't already. And so you have the opportunity at this birthday party just to,
Mhm.
like, it's not literally the third person and the sixth person and the ninth person, but to gain a perspective of this many of my kids' friends,
Yeah,
or maybe it's my kid.
yeah,
Maybe it's my kid. How do I create an environment that's safe enough for my kid to come and tell me I snuck out and I went to the party and this horrible thing happened? Right? Or create a safe enough environment for your kid's best friend to come to you and say those things. So rather than a static list of may be showing symptoms of depression, they may be cutting, they may be dabbling with addictive substances or self medicating in a variety of ways, they may have eating disorders, but they may be experiencing a level of trauma that it is so deeply compartmentalized that you don't see it on the surface. Like for me, my exploitation continued through my senior year of high school, and I was a straight A student. I was the teacher's pet. I was the yearbook editor. I was a cheerleader. I was on the homecoming court
wow.
because school was where I felt safe. I was
Mm,
seen. I was loved. I was appreciated. I was safe at
yeah,
school. And it was a totally different world when I
yeah,
left school in the evening and entered into a different existence. But the two never met,
yeah.
right?
I think that is a really important and powerful point that you just made, that it's not about the list. It's about slowing down and actually checking in with the people around you, and creating that environment of safety for them to feel comfortable coming to you about that. Like I know very well that feeling
Mm,
of like, well, I can't talk to anybody about this because I'll be in trouble.
right.
Yeah,
It's my fault. I shouldn't have, shoulda, coulda, woulda. There's so much shame attached to
exactly.
exploitation and sexual abuse, which is just one of the functionalities of sexual violence,
Yep.
right? The
Yep.
perpetrator puts their guilt and shame on the person they're victimizing,
Yeah.
and the person that's victimized carries that when in fact it should be the perpetrator that's ashamed. That's one of the other thing that kind of pokes at me or irritates me in counter trafficking work. A lot of times we see videos of individuals that have been exploited sharing their story, and a lot of times their face is blurred out
Yeah.
or their voice is disguised. But they, in the same documentaries, will interview perpetrators who
Mm,
show their face and don't disguise their voice. Well, why is it she is disguised and his
mm,
face is out there? Why
right.
is she ashamed instead
Yeah.
of him?
Yeah.
It should be reversed, which is
Yeah.
what I spend so much of my time and energy working towards fighting for.
Yeah. Which is amazing. Can we talk a little bit about your organization, Compass 31, and the work that you do?
Yeah, Compass 31 was born in June of 2011, so we're in our 14th year,
Mm.
and just a really cool, I think, twist of fate. I endured 14 years of exploitation, and now we're getting ready to celebrate 14 years of counter trafficking work globally.
Wow.
And I think that's an amazing thing. And we started in Southeast Asia. And the very beginning of our work was my husband and I providing foster care to teenage mama baby sets. So, teenage girls who were coming out of sexual exploitation, who
Mm.
were pregnant or had babies as a result of the violence against them. And
Okay.
we spent 8 years providing foster care in that environment in Southeast
Mhm.
Asia. On any given night, I would have 17 or 18 around my dinner table. And it wasn't the one, two, three statistic. They had all experienced
Yeah.
exploitation. And over the course of 8 years providing foster care, my husband and I were able to foster 14 who are beautiful, brilliant, resilient, thriving, amazing individuals. But the other coincidence with that is my own history of violence that I've alluded to did a tremendous amount of damage, obviously. And so I've been pregnant 17 times, but had 14 miscarriages, 14 losses.
Mm.
And so I lost 14 babies and I fostered 14. And I
Wow.
experienced 14 years of violence. And now June will be our 14th birthday fighting for
Wow.
freedom. So you just met me at this perfect collision intersection of,
Absolutely.
of what healing looks like, what
Yeah.
redemption looks like.
Yeah. I cannot wait to talk more about your healing journey. And I want to ask you before we go too much further, how did you eventually get out of the situation? And
Mm.
what was the immediate aftermath like for you?
Yeah, I started my senior year at high school, and I had come to believe at that point that my only hope of escape would be through completing my own suicide. And not really big on pain, didn't want anything messy, but I have incredible willpower. So
Mm.
I decided that I would just starve myself to death. So I started my senior year in high school at 126 pounds and I'm 5'5". So that's, healthy, fit. And I allowed myself every third day a glass of chocolate milk or a grilled cheese sandwich. And that was it. That's how I did my senior year. So by the end of my senior year, I was down to 89 pounds. So it was working. My hair was falling out in handfuls. I was fainting in school. I was covered with bruises because my whole metabolic system was a wreck, right? But I came out of school one day in late April, and my grandfather was waiting for me again. Again, familial trafficking. My primary perpetrator was my grandfather. He was waiting for me again. He took me to a place where the unthinkable happened again. And when I went home after that, I was so devastated that I thought, well, it's taking too long. Like, cannot do this again. And so I that evening attempted and failed to complete
Mm.
my suicide. And the next morning, I woke up still holding the bloody knife clutched in my fist. And when I woke up, it was time to get ready for school. And I know this probably isn't going to make sense to so many people. But if you've been in a place of, that night, I was like howling grief. ugly grief. And once again, the miraculous design of our body, I dropped into freeze, was sedated, was anesthetized. The next morning, I woke up and it was time to get ready for school. And I already told you, school was my safe place. I
Mhm.
look at the clock, I look at the knife, I'm like, okay. I went to school. After school that day, I had an appointment at a clinic and I found out I was pregnant. And it awoke this pregnancy and woke a mama bear instinct in me. There were times during the course of my childhood that I tried to fight, that I tried to run, and I learned really, really quickly that my survival was dependent on my silence and my submission. I
Mm.
learned it well. But now, 17, baby to protect, I finally had the courage to disclose enough of what was happening to a counselor,
Okay.
and she was able to intervene and get my son and myself to safety. And coincidentally, I found out that I was pregnant on April 26th. It was about 10 days before my 18th birthday. It was 2 weeks, 3 weeks before I graduated from high school. And every year since then, my
Mm.
son and I celebrate his day on April 26th. I have told him from the beginning that he was a hero from conception, that I would not be here had it not been for his intervention in
Yeah.
my life. And so, still to this day, he is now 34. And to this
Yeah.
day, April 26th, we celebrate his day every year.
That's really beautiful. And wow, like the story is heartbreaking. I know I've said it many times. There's just not another word for it. Let's talk about healing.
Yeah,
Healing from trauma is rarely linear.
it's
What
messy.
very messy. What were some of the hardest parts of your healing journey?
Oh, gosh. It's been a long journey. I've been free for a long time. And I think one of the biggest challenges certainly earlier on in my journey was like, how long? Like,
Mm.
let's fix this already. Like, I'll do the therapy. Let's just fix it already. Why am I still? Why am I still triggered? Why am I still? And I was so desperate for there to be an end. And, um, you know, I dug in, I did the work, I went to therapy, but so many of the times that I was in a therapeutic environment, I would kind of be dreading it like, okay, 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 I'm going to go, I'm going to do the work. I spent an hour and a half in the therapist office recounting in brutal detail what happened. And you know this, as you tell the story, your brain doesn't time travel. It thinks whatever you're describing is happening right now.
Yeah.
So your body releases all the chemicals, fight, flight, freeze, all the drama, all the trauma, all the snot, like it. And you leave therapy, or maybe not you, I would leave therapy feeling like I got hit by a truck.
Yes.
And then next week, go do it again. And next week, go do it again. And how long and how many times do I have to recount this? So I think that was a really, really big challenge, which I have found a solution for. Another big challenge was I grew up with a belief or understanding that all men are bad, are
Mm.
dangerous, that they only want one thing. There's only one way to survive or navigate. I had a lot of challenges with my own femininity, with
Yeah.
being pretty, with being desirable, and that being dangerous, um, with what healthy sexuality looks like or doesn't. Those were all challenges that I wrestled with. How do I build healthy relationships when I didn't know what
Mm.
a healthy relationship was?
Mm.
And so those have all been part of my journey. And in reality, I'm more than 30 years free at this point, and I still sometimes have nightmares. I still sometimes sleep with the lights on
Mhm.
or am a touch me not with my husband
Mhm.
because the ghosts are present. They're too close. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm walking around with no skin on.
Yeah.
Even with that, though, like I alluded to a moment ago,
Mhm.
finding solutions to those challenges right now, Jessica, I'm living happily ever after. Like, I literally wake up several times a week and my face is tired from smiling so much in my sleep. Like,
I love that.
who does that? Everybody's been to a party or watched a movie that happens, that you laugh
Yeah.
so much that your face is tired.
Yeah.
But I wake up like that. And my day to day 9 to 5 job is counter trafficking. I sit with survivors in the darkest
Oh my
places,
goodness.
and still I wake up with such hope and passion and joy that I'm absolutely living happily ever after.
That's so amazing. Where do you find the strength for that?
Again, for me, I would say the most foundational piece of that is faith. But the piece of it that is significant in this conversation is understanding the design. I would say that every human I meet is made in the image of God, is
Yeah.
divine,
Yeah.
is made in the image of the divine. And so, for instance, if, I'm at the grocery store the other day and a guy walks by and I'm suddenly triggered
Mhm.
and I'm in fight or flight.
Mm.
From the outside looking in, it would appear crazy. Like there's no threat here. And I could judge myself as, are you kidding? You've been free for how long? That is not your grandfather's cologne that just walked by,
Mm.
right? Which keeps us spinning in this cycle of shame and defeat. Like there's
Yeah.
no end. Are you kidding? Still? Again? Now? I'm
Mhm.
just trying to get milk. However, I have come to understand, I used to call them triggers. That's the name that everybody's familiar with.
Mm.
But now I understand them as invitations. And here's what I mean. This guy walks by, his cologne smells like my grandfather. I'm in fight or flight. I have this big reaction. My shoulders are up. My breath is tight. I feel nauseous. I'm sweating, all the things. But if I recognize that I am fearfully and wonderfully made,
Mm.
and this fight reflex that I'm feeling is actually functionally, chemically courage. It is evidence that my body has always been designed to rise and meet every challenge and either confront it or get to safety.
Wow.
So I can look at this reaction and go, yeah, yeah, look, I did that. I I survived that, and my body, fearfully and wonderfully made, is equipped to rise to every challenge and successfully confront it or get to safety. And so every time I get triggered, it's not that I don't get triggered. I
Mm.
do, but now it just compounds its evidence of resilience,
Mhm.
evidence of overcoming, evidence of a hope and a future. And that's glorious.
It is.
It's not, I don't think personally, this is just Jennisue ideology. I don't think post traumatic stress is a disorder to be fixed. I think all of those symptoms are
Mm.
evidence that, yeah, look, you're responding appropriately to an unimaginable situation.
Mhm.
And look at you, you made it.
Yeah.
And when we start framing it or understanding it, like this isn't fear, this is courage. This is a
Mhm.
chemical shot of courage that it becomes empowering
Yeah.
instead of something to be fixed. I don't believe humans can be broken. I think we can be wounded,
Yeah.
certainly, and wounded in need of care
Mhm.
and treatment, but not broken. A glass gets broken, objects get broken, humans get wounded,
Yeah.
and the human body is designed to heal itself. You
Mhm.
fall down and skin your knee, you don't sit on the curb thinking platelets, platelets, platelets to form a scab, or white blood cells to fight off any infection. Your body does it
Mhm.
because it's designed to do that. And I think I have come to believe the same is true for our mental health.
I absolutely love that. That reframe, that is incredibly empowering. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's talk about the identity piece.
Mm,
So, How did you begin to rebuild your identity after being in a situation where you were stripped of so much of it?
A great one. For much of my life, I believed I was defined by what happened to me. Even when I got into therapy, a year into therapy, 2 years into therapy, I discovered that I could be angry and it was safe to be angry. And my grandfather was the bad guy. It was his guilt, his shame. I could accept, I was learning to accept, to navigate that. Good tools, important tools. However, I would have at that point said, and I did for many years, like, yeah, my grandfather was the bad guy. I know it was his fault. He was the perpetrator, but I am a whore because he made me a whore. Because I thought I was defined by my trauma. And culturally, we do it in a lot of different ways. You meet somebody at a coffee shop or at school, or, hi, I'm Jennisue. I am a wife. I am a mother. I am a founder of an international nonprofit. I am an author. I am a podcast host. We introduce ourselves by what we do,
Mhm.
or sometimes, depending on the context, what we've been through. I am a cancer survivor. I am the child of an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic, right? By things that we've been through, depending on the context.
Yep.
But all of those are what, and
Mm,
what's give us clues to identity,
mm,
but we wear them as if they're our identity.
mm.
Here's what I mean. Like Compass 31, I have an international counter trafficking organization. We've seen more than 500,000 people impacted across 44 nations. It's incredible. But if Compass 31, my organization, ceased to exist tomorrow, I wouldn't disappear. I wouldn't just melt into a shadow in the ground. I would still be here the next day.
Yeah.
So I might think my identity is my job. But if my job goes away, I don't.
Mhm.
Or it's really common for moms as their kids grow. Like if my
Mm.
identity has been I'm a mom and then I have an empty nest, who am I?
Yeah.
Because we've linked our identity to a what. I would argue that every what is a clue to who. So for me, as founder and CEO of a nonprofit, the clue is I am justice driven. And that is true. Jessica, that was true in first grade when I threw a rock at a boy for bullying another kid on the playground.
I
And if
love
I
it.
live to be 100 years old, I will always be justice driven. I'm a wife and mother. Notice the particle there, a. I am a wife, a mother, a founder, an author. A wife and a mother, I am loving, I am faithful. Suddenly there's no separation. I
Yeah.
am this. The hardest one for me to grasp was, the one that I made reference to. I hope I haven't offended you or your audience too much with my language. But when I learned this exercise originally, one of the things, the what's on my list was I am a survivor.
Mhm.
And the teacher, with such grace and compassion, said, yes, that is what you are, but it's not who you are. What does
Mm.
that tell you about who you are? And I'll tell you, I got stomping mad. Like, I don't know who you think you are, but you don't have any business telling me who I am. Like, I have all this experience. I have all these nightmares. Lost 14 babies. Don't be telling me I'm not a survivor. And again, she just kept coming back. No, I agree. That is what you
Mhm.
are, but
Mhm.
it is not who you are. What's it tell you about who you are? And when I could peel back the layers, which was some work,
Mm.
some angry work initially, what I found under all those layers is I am fierce and I am resilient.
Yes.
And I can wear that, right?
Yeah.
Just surviving anymore.
Mm-mm.
I I did that, right? That's done. I survived that.
Yeah.
And now, but then 4 years old, 6 years old, 8 years old, 15 years old, enduring unthinkable violence. Survivor, survivor, survivor. Fierce, resilient, fierce, resilient. fierce, resilient. And the violence ended a long time ago, but that will be true of me until I move to the other side.
Yeah. Wow.
So I think our trauma does not define us, it equips us.
I absolutely love that. For anybody who wants to dig more into that identity work, what would
Mhm.
you suggest is the best way for them to do that? Like journaling or
I think journaling is great. I have a little booklet. I would be happy to send them for free and walk them through it. Again, free, like they don't have to pay anything. But just journaling is first when I lead people through the exercise, I give them 5 minutes to list every what they can think
Mm,
of about themselves. Like if you
mhm,
go into a new group, what if you go into a networking business meeting? How are you going to introduce yourself? What if you go to your kid's school? How are you going to introduce yourself? What if you go
mhm,
to a, a church or sanctuary? How are you going to introduce yourself? If you go to a political rally, like
mhm,
I am a Democrat or I am Republican or I am independent, libertarian,
mhm,
whatever. As far as our sexuality, our identity, I am straight, I am whatever. Take all the whats and
mhm.
all of them, the clue is gonna have a "an" in front of it. And then take time over the next days, maybe weeks, for every one of them, find at least one, if not 2 or 3, what that clue is telling you about who you are,
That deeper that
that deeper.
deeper part that's coming from that.
Right. And I even challenge people or invite people to consider, uh, the next time they're invited to introduce themselves, instead of saying, "Hi, I'm Jenny Sue. I'm founder and CEO of Compass 31. Hi, I'm Jenny Sue. I'm fierce and resilient. Who are you?"
I love
You
that.
know?
Yeah.
Like, talk about connecting people on a
Mhm.
different level and slowing down to the speed of love.
Yeah.
People immediately like, "What?"
Yes, yes. Yeah, that
So
definitely will.
journaling, they don't have to reach out at me. They don't need a free workbook. They can just journal all the whats they can think of and then explore what that means about who
Yeah.
they are. And when you get to the who's, there won't be a particle a or an in front of it.
Hmm. That's so good. I will put any details of that in the show notes so that they can
Okay.
find that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the shame.
Mm,
And I'm wondering, so like we were saying before, I think most of us, if not all of us, who've been through abusive situations, especially of a sexual nature, feel shame as the person it happened to.
mhm.
What would you say to someone listening right now who is still feeling stuck in their trauma or shame?
Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is shame is a liar. Like, yes, it's normal to feel it because whoever the perpetrator was poured their shame into you. You became a vessel, a bucket to carry their shame, and you don't have to carry it any longer.
Yep.
Shame is a liar. It isn't yours to carry. What they
Mhm.
did to you, it doesn't matter what you were wearing or weren't wearing. It doesn't matter what you were drinking or weren't drinking. It doesn't matter that you walked down the dark alley to take a shortcut or that you trusted your big brother and went with him and his friends. That is their shame to carry. And whenever you feel that overwhelming sense, and and I can relate. I mean, for years and years, I didn't talk about my story at all
Yep.
because I thought anybody who heard or saw me, that's all they would see,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And yuck. I didn't want to be pitied. I didn't want them to be looking at me with
Yeah.
shame.
Mm.
And then I discovered like, oh, this is a liar. I'm carrying around something that doesn't belong to me. And just like I had the capacity to get to freedom and to walk a life of purpose and joy, I have the capacity, not just me, but every person listening to you has the
Mhm.
capacity to every time you feel it, acknowledge it
Yes.
and go, yeah, but that's not mine.
Yes.
And I'm going to put it down.
Mm.
And we get really practiced at putting it down so that it comes and overwhelms much less often
Yes.
until one day it doesn't come at all.
Yeah. I completely agree with all of that. In my experience, also did not talk about what happened to me for many, many, many years because I felt ashamed
Mhm.
and I didn't want the people in my life to look down on me or think less of me because of experiences that happened to me. And
Mhm.
then I started like during my healing journey, I will say that it happened during that time, not before. But
Mhm.
during that healing, I realized that that's not at all the truth. And
Mhm.
like you were talking about identity, this just means that I'm strong.
Mhm.
Like, I am so strong and I am so resilient. And those are the things that people will see, not feeling or not looking at you like you've done something wrong or like you need to be ashamed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes practice. It is a
Yeah.
journey. It is, and I think, early on, I would say for me personally, this may or may not be true for individuals listening, but for me early on, my shame was, if I had a shame meter 0 to 100, I probably sat at 101 all the time, right?
Yeah.
And over time, I learned, okay, yeah, that was my grandfather's, not mine. That was that guy's, not mine. That was that guy's, not mine. And it started coming down and it started coming down and it started coming down. And it took practice
Yeah.
to get move from the difference between head knowledge
Yeah.
to owning and living. And part of that identity exercise, even when we move away from saying, I am a victim or I am a survivor, and we find the who's beneath that, if we weigh our shame against fierce and resilient,
Mm.
strong, courageous,
Yeah.
loving, faithful, it
Yeah.
it turns down that meter lower and lower and lower and lower. But it takes practice. And sometimes it can be set off, when people, well-meaning people, just say really dumb things, you know? Because I think well-meaning, I think they want to connect, they
Yeah.
want to understand, they don't have a frame of reference, but
Yeah.
they can just say some of the, "Why didn't you? Why didn't you leave? Why did you go? Why did you what? What were you thinking?" And those turn the shame meter right back up,
Yes. Yes.
right? And so it takes practice, and for me, I just have this mental image of, those people asking they're trying, it's their best effort in the moment, but they're
Exactly.
asking these really hurtful questions. And for
Yeah.
me, now they just bypass me and go straight into the bucket. And I'm like, yeah, that's not mine to carry.
Exactly. Yeah. And for those people, it's like realizing that they don't know any better.
Right. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're trying.
Exactly. Exactly. You have turned your pain into purpose in such an incredible way. What inspired you to start your own organization?
Well, this is a great segue, a great transition point because like we were just talking for years and years I didn't talk about my story. I didn't want to be pitied. The shame was too great, all the things. And then at some point, well, we were already, my husband and I, and two of our kids already living in Southeast Asia. And I couldn't go on a date on Friday night in the community where we lived without seeing little kids being exploited. Like any restaurant we would go to on a Friday night, the burger place, the Indian place, like any place we went, there would be old men on dates, and I use that euphemistically, buying food for the little kid they're about to assault. And so it was in my face. It was inescapable. It's not that it is happening at a greater magnitude in Asia.
Mm,
Like we tend to stereotypically think it's happening at the same frequency in the US. But in the US or in Western cultures, we have a filter that we automatically assume that this is not acceptable.
yeah.
Like having sex with children is not acceptable,
Mhm.
period.
Yeah.
Full stop. Culturally, we accept that to be true, even though it's happening. But
Yeah.
where I was living, culturally, that is not the paradigm. It is
Mm,
a normal thing for parents to exploit their children. And there's a lot of ideas that impact that. But I couldn't go on a date with my husband without encountering that. And that collided with, at the same time in my soul, if I didn't talk about my story, if I didn't put it to use, then what was it worth? Like, what was the point? What if instead all that I endured could equip me to meet people who were and interact with and empower people who were experiencing the same or similar types of violence? And so the collision of those two things of like, yeah, I could have locked it up in a box and left it compartmentalized and pretended surface level everything's fine. And when I go on a date on Friday night, turn my head the other way because this is
yeah.
uncomfortable and I'm mad that it's still happening, but kind of wear a false identity of victimization, right?
Mhm.
Like I can't fix it. I couldn't get myself free. I can't get them free. Or I could watch redemption unfold and I could take my story out of a box and I could share it in such a way that empowers other people to walk out and into freedom.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, what
Yeah.
glory, what privilege to have a front row seat watching freedom unfold again and again and again and again. And
Yeah.
now we have restoration work happening in 5 countries. We have prevention work happening in 44 countries. I'm personally mentoring 18 individuals right now that have experienced exploitation. So
That must be so fulfilling.
it is. It's crushingly beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of your major accomplishments is that you were appointed to the US Advisory Council.
Hmm.
How has that been? How have you found that? What has that work taught you about the power of survivor voices?
You know, it was such an incredible privilege. It was a 2-year term.
Mm,
And I was appointed by President Trump. It is a presidential appointment to a 2-year term. But my appointment came as he was leaving his first term of
mm,
office. And so I served 2 years under the Biden administration. So I
okay.
straddled both administrations. And one of the most powerful healing pieces for me personally was, like I said, growing up, I learned that my survival depended on silence and submission. And to be invited and appointed by one of the most powerful political individuals in the world
Yeah.
globally, personally, to serve on this council, the U.S. Advisory Council, I was part of an 11-member cohort.
Okay.
And our job specifically was to regularly meet with the senior policy advisors to the president's cabinet
Mm,
and explore what is and is not happening with Homeland Security, with education, with health and human services, with all the cabinet positions, what's happening at the border. And our job was to explore what federal laws there are, how they're being implemented, and what needs to change. And all of us as survivor leaders coming from different places, some of the individuals I served with were from other countries and trafficked into the US. Some of them were exploited as children, some as adults. Some of
mm,
them were male, some of them were female, across the political spectrum. And to come together and have a voice to inform federal counter trafficking policy was such a privilege, and
yeah.
it was deeply healing and very empowering. Every year we publish a report. The council publishes a report making a series of recommendations of what needs to be done better. Yeah, so I served my 2-year term. there is the possibility an individual can serve 2 terms. So there could be another term in the future. I think one of the hardest things about it
Mhm.
was that trafficking doesn't happen in a vacuum. Trafficking happens because people at every level are profiting from or complicit in exploitation.
Mhm.
And so, when we're going toe to toe with high level guys at the Department of Justice who are clearly advocating for policies that exploit people,
Mm.
it's really, really hard. It's super challenging to see where chinks in the armor are, where
Yeah.
the gaps are, where people are falling through the cracks because people in positions of power are either profiting from or complicit in trafficking. And that was one of the
Yeah.
hard, hard parts.
Yeah, that would have been extremely hard, I'm sure, but so incredibly rewarding to
Mhm.
know that you were able to make such a huge difference. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was an incredible opportunity. I'm deeply
Yeah,
grateful to have had it.
yeah. So, what does empowerment mean to you today? And how do you nurture it in yourself and others, the people you work with?
Empowerment for me today means recognizing my own autonomous worth and power. Like, I get to decide. I get to decide yes or no. I get to decide where I spend my time. I get to spend where I'm going to spend my energy, what I'm going to invest my time, my heart, my finances in. I don't have to have anybody's permission to argue a case against exploitation or for freedom or to go toe to toe with lecherous Larry at the DOJ. I have a voice and I can stand in it.
Mhm.
It's not a fatal thing anymore to use my voice, where once upon a time I believed that it was. And so empowerment means that for me personally. In my work, one of the things that makes Compass 31 unique is that we believe in walking alongside of our survivors to the highest level of education they desire.
Mm.
So we've had one graduate law school and pass her bar exam. We now have 4 with master's degrees in social work. We have a couple of business degrees. We have a couple of other college degrees. We have one that graduated beauty school and has her own beauty salon, a seamstress who's making custom designed wedding gowns. I don't have a cookie cutter model. I want the individuals that we serve to be whatever they were intended to be before the trauma happened. And so we equip them to pursue whatever it is they're built to do. And part of that is, one, them learning their identity, the
Mhm.
difference between what they are and who they are, and 2, dreaming
Yeah.
about what their future is and how they're going to make an impact in it.
I think it's so important to have that dream, and especially when you have been through trauma, been through
Mhm,
traumatic events, to come out on the other side of it. And, for a while, I know for myself, many, many years afterwards, I was stuck in survival mode.
mhm.
And I didn't have a dream because it was just simply, I need to survive.
Right.
Like I can only focus on what's happening in that present moment. And eventually I was able to find the dream. And
Mhm.
that really helps to, I feel like helps you along further along that healing journey. It gives
It
you
really does.
hope and shows how you can accomplish something even though you've had a past that maybe made you feel differently.
Yeah, and there's neuroscience behind that as well. If you've lived in trauma, the part of your brain that activates the amygdala and the hippocampus and thalamus working together to activate you with courage to face the challenge, right, is super attuned and developed, and the parts of our brain with that executive function of hope and future and vision have
Yeah.
been on mute,
Yeah.
have been low key on the down low for
Yeah.
sometimes weeks, months, sometimes years and years. And so it takes time to rebalance the system so that your fight or flight system is responding appropriately
Mm.
and you can dream and vision and hope of what a future is. And it's part of the
Absolutely.
process. So
It
I
is.
hope people wouldn't beat themselves up for that. It's a
Mm.
normal function and it's totally recoverable.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get practical for a little bit here.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what practical safety tips would you offer women to or men to protect themselves and others in their communities? I know you mentioned just being present and paying
Mhm.
attention to your surroundings. Is there anything more practical that you have?
I think that is the key, certainly to protecting others, slowing down to the speed of love, but also um, being super aware of your
Yeah.
environment. It is statistically they've done a lot of research in the context of self-defense. In one of the ways they've measured this is professional boxing or MMA fighting. And the person who throws the first punch or lands makes first contact is like 85% more likely to win the bout.
Wow.
Okay. So the first person to make contact wins 85% of the time. And so this may seem off the wall, but track with me for a second. So if
Mhm.
I'm hyper aware of my surroundings and I have the gift of fear, like you come to the elevator, there's a guy in the elevator, and you have this like,
Mhm.
humans are the only animal on the planet that will discount that.
Mhm.
The antelope in the savannah does not have the like, "Oh, the lion, he's not hungry. It's fine. I don't wanna hurt the lion's feelings. I'm just gonna keep grazing." Humans are the only one that disregard it. And so when we're aware of our surroundings and we encounter somebody, maybe up close and personal, maybe several yards away,
Mhm.
and we have that, we should
Mhm.
immediately activate like, okay, I'm going to steer clear of this person. No, I'm not getting in the elevator. No, I'm not going down the alley. No, I'm not going down that hall. I don't care if they're offended.
Yeah.
I don't have to have an excuse.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're a rapist. I'm
Mhm.
saying my nervous system is activated and I'm going to honor it. The next thing is if somebody engages and you feel threatened, to immediately and loudly use your voice.
Mm.
No, back off, leave me alone. And what happens is actually that is throwing the first punch
Mm.
because you catch them off guard. You're
Mhm.
the first person to make contact, even though it's verbally, and you draw attention to the situation. And it makes escape, a healthy escape, far more likely.
Hmm.
And so, again, you don't have to have a reason. Maybe they're just drunk and are being over friendly and they're not really a perpetrator, but maybe they need to be scared sober. When you go, back off, leave me alone in a really loud, aggressive voice.
Yeah.
And then if you're in a situation that has escalated to violence, I actually teach a self-defense course. And what we teach our participants is you fight to injure and escape. So
Mm.
we actually teach our participants like how to collapse a human eyeball or bite off what is ever put in your mouth, how to injure them in a way that gets you the space you need to escape. And so those are all key points, but I would like to affirm that as far as trafficking goes, the vast majority of people being trafficked are being trafficked by somebody they love and trust.
Yeah.
And for those individuals, they're being trafficked because they believe that it's their fault. And so the key to escape then becomes understanding, no, this isn't my shame to carry.
Yeah.
This is them. And there are safe people in the world that want to help.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that they have the courage to reach out to those people because they're still alive.
I had a moment just with respect to saying that don't discount your feelings. I've never felt this way before, but I was leaving a basketball game and everybody's leaving. It was packed, it was crowded. I was with a group of friends, but I had gotten separated from them and it was just like a lot of confusion and I had a moment where I was like looking around confused and trying to find people and somebody spotted me and
Mm,
noticed that and he tried talking to me and it was just an immediate like you feel it in your body. You're like,
yeah.
"No, there is something wrong here." And so I walked away. I just ignored him. Thankfully, I found somebody I knew, so I walked over to
Mm,
her and I immediately told her, "There is a
yep.
man over there who there's just something not right, and he's trying to talk to
Yep.
me." And, he came over closer to me again, and I was gonna have to walk by him to get into my Uber.
Mm,
And, so, yeah, she waited with me until my Uber was there, and then when I walked past, he tried talking to me again, and I just shouted. I was like, "I'm not interested,"
yeah.
and got into the car.
Good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, but it like, heart racing, and I've
Mhm.
never had an experience where in my mind, the immediate thought that came to me was, "He wants to traffic me." Like
Mm,
yeah. So
yeah.
it yeah.
That is really important story, and I'm really glad you shared it because it does bring up another point, and I tell this to my girls. I have a grown daughter and a daughter-in-law, and if they're ever in a situation at a bar, at a club, at a restaurant, that they're not with their husbands and they feel vulnerable, they can go up to any
Yeah.
person at the bar and pretend to know them. And
Yes.
like, "Hey, mom, like, I was looking for you," or to
Yeah.
a man, like, "Hey, dad, hey, Uncle Joe,"
Mhm.
and just tell that person, "Listen, I'm unsafe right now. There's somebody
Yeah.
can pretend to be my uncle, pretend to be
Yeah.
my mom." And that person will immediately, because we're built for connection.
Yeah.
I think, like you shared so tenderly your story. You were a hero from conception. My son was a hero from conception. I suspect, Jessica, that every human on the planet is a hero from conception. And if they're given the opportunity, they will rise to the
Yeah.
challenge. So if any of your listeners are in an environment that they feel scared like you did, or I have had that experience as well, and you're not with friends, you're not with community, go to the first person that signals to you that's a safe
A
person.
safe.
Whoever in your environment feels safe,
Mhm.
walk to them as if you've known them your whole life
Yeah.
and start talking to them, and the hero in them will rise.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and in my situation, it was I had that moment of being like, "Am I overreacting?" Like, I don't wanna
Mhm,
go to this person because it was also a person who I did not know very well, and
mm,
so I was like, "I don't wanna go this person and, like, tell her this, and then her be like, 'Oh, she's overreacting,' and, it was all getting caught up in my head, and in that moment, it was like, "This is literally your safety." Like,
yeah,
even even if you are overreacting, like, your body is telling you that something is not right, so
right.
just follow and trust your instincts.
The antelope doesn't do any of those mental gymnastics.
Yeah,
The antelope doesn't care if the lion's offended. The
yeah,
antelope senses run and runs. And that's why I call it the gift of fear. It is an appropriate, healthy response. And it doesn't necessarily mean like every time you feel fear that that guy is a rapist or a
mhm,
trafficker but there's something in you that says this situation is not safe.
mhm,
And there, for many, many people, there's been situations that you couldn't honor. You knew it wasn't
yep,
safe and you're stuck.
yep,
And so every time you are able to use your voice and escape from a situation that feels unsafe,
yep.
regardless of what the threat is, it is empowering. And
Very.
it proves once again you have what it takes to navigate these challenges.
Exactly. So how can someone safely intervene or offer support if they suspect trafficking or something is happening to someone they know? Or, I mean, even what if they are the person that, like,
Mm,
somebody came up to them and said, "Talk to me like you know me." Like,
mhm.
what can that person do?
Safety is always key, right? And safety in numbers.
Yeah.
So if somebody approached me, like at a club or a bar, some girl comes up and says, Mama, and I don't know her,
Uh-huh.
then immediately I'm going to be looking for other people to join our
Mm,
tribe.
mhm,
You know,
yeah,
I'm going to get the attention of the bartender or the waiter, and I'm going to inform them,
yeah,
like, hey, she's feeling unsafe. There's the guy over there. I'm going to let them handle it. It is less than ideal to confront a suspected perpetrator. That can make it more dangerous for everybody
mm,
involved. But I often, because I try to practice what I preach, slow down to the speed of love. I often ask people like, "Hey, are you okay? Do
yeah,
you need anything? And is there any way I can love and serve you today?" And so if it's somebody that I know or a kid at my table or, everybody's having a great time, but one person is not,
yeah,
then I'm going to notice and I'm going to, are you okay? Is there anything you want to talk about? And they may say no, and that's okay, but I've planted a seed. So maybe 3 days from now or 3 weeks from now or 3 years from now, they're going to come back and say, yeah, I need help,
yeah,
because they will recognize me as that safe person.
yeah,
And so I'm going to look for allies in the immediate environment. And if it is in a situation where somebody has disclosed to me, then I'm going to empower that person to get connected to the right resources. Meaning, do we need to go to the hospital? Do we need to have a rape kit done, a whole analysis? Do we need to go to the police station? Do we want to make a police report? Will that serve you? Do we need to report to family services? But I'm not going to do those things for them.
mhm,
I'm going to empower them to do them.
yeah,
Like, I'll sit with you, I'll dial the phone, I'll go with you, but I'm not a Jim Caviezel that's going to kick down the door. I'm going to see you and hear you and empower you to walk towards freedom, because if they do it, then they're going to stay free,
yeah, yeah. I
right?
love that. Yeah. Jenny, so you have given us so much of your time and wisdom. I just have a few more questions to wrap up if you're okay with this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. So, looking back, what would you tell your younger self if you could speak to her now?
Hang in there, baby.
Yeah. Freedom is coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hang in there.
Yeah. What's giving you hope right now in this work or in your own life?
Hope in work and life. I just had a new, beautiful, squishy grandbaby. The third and fourth grandbaby is due in the fall. And the life goes on and on. And there's a whole nother generation. My kids were raised in freedom. My grandbabies are going to be raised in freedom. Gives me a tremendous amount of hope. Beyond that, because I personally mentor individuals who have experienced exploitation, I hear their hard stories and I watch them make choices. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so the 1 step back, the falling or the falling off the wagon or whatever, it's like, yeah, it's a speed bump. 2 steps
Mhm.
forward, 1 step back. And watching them rise to the fullness of who they're meant to be gives me hope. I see it again and again. They aren't defined by their trauma, they're equipped by it. All
Yeah.
their coping strategies kept them alive. And now we're going to translate it into a functional, wild, wonderful life.
It's amazing. If someone listening is just beginning their healing journey, what's one step you'd encourage them to take today?
Hang on, baby.
Yes.
I don't mean that in a belittling or condescending way. I mean it with the
Mhm.
utmost affection. I'm a mama, I'm a grandmama now, that it is hard and you've got it. You have everything that it takes to overcome everything that you've been through. And
Yeah.
even your triggers and your anxiety and your depression are evidence that your body responded perfectly, appropriately to
Yes.
unimaginable things. And so that's evidence that you've got it. Keep coming.
Yeah.
Hang on.
100%. It's all within you. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jenny Sue, for being here and being vulnerable with us, sharing all of your wisdom and advice. And just, this has been wonderful. And you are truly making such an amazing difference in the world. And I really appreciate everything that you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica. I so much appreciate, you know, silence and submission isn't my life anymore. And every time somebody shares their platform and allows me to use my voice to inspire other people towards freedom, compounds my healing yet again. So this
Good.
time was a gift to me, and I'm deeply grateful.
Thank you.